Picture this. You're 7 years old, caught red-handed stealing a biscuit before dinner. Your mom doesn't yell. She doesn't lecture. She just looks at you and says 6 words. 6 simple words that make your stomach drop, because you instantly know you've been caught, you've messed up, and there's no talking your way out of this one. What kind of linguistic sorcery is this? How did phrases coined 700 years ago have the power to stop children in their tracks, teach life lessons, and transmit wisdom across generations, without sounding preachy, without drama, without the eye-rolling that comes with modern parenting speeches? Today, we're unpacking 20 of these proverbs. But here's the twist. Some of them sound so bizarre, so oddly specific, that you'll question whether parents actually said these things to children. And by the end, you'll understand why these ancient formulas worked better than modern psychology textbooks. Let me tell you something they never taught you in school. In medieval and early modern England, there was no internet, books were scarce, and literacy was a luxury most families couldn't afford. But you know what everyone had? Language. And that language functioned like a hard drive loaded with the operating system of survival. Proverbs weren't pretty decorations for conversation. They were concentrated experience, packaged into rhythm or rhyme to burrow into your brain and never leave. Parents wielded them as parenting tools because a proverb is a ready-made argument you can't dispute. You can't tell your mother she's wrong when she's quoting wisdom that's been tested for 400 years. Let's start with the simplest, yet most unsettling. 1. Little pitchers have big ears. First recorded in the 16th century, though used much earlier. Parents would say this when they wanted to stop a conversation around children. Why pitchers? Because the pitchers of that era had large handles, ears. The meaning? Children hear everything. Absolutely everything. Even when you think they're absorbed in play. This proverb created a dual sensation in the child. On one hand, you matter, you're noticed. On the other, you're being watched. Be careful. Psychologically, it cultivated self-awareness and restraint. Here's what's fascinating. Modern research confirms that children do perceive and remember adult conversations, even when they appear not to be listening. Medieval parents knew this without neuropsychology. 2. A burnt child dreads the fire. 13th century, one of the oldest English proverbs. Parents said this when a child made the same mistake twice. Simple idea. Pain teaches. But look at the phrasing. Not be careful, not I told you so. No, a burnt child dreads. You've already been burned. Case closed. This isn't a warning, it's a statement of fact. And that's where the power lies. The proverb doesn't argue or plead. Experience is a cruel but honest teacher. Want to know the darkest part? In those times, children genuinely did get burned frequently. Hearths, candles, open flames everywhere. This proverb wasn't metaphorical. It was reality transformed into a lesson. Now it gets interesting, because not all proverbs were about danger and obedience. Some were about cunning. 3. All cats are gray in the dark. 16th century. Parents told children this when they tried to choose friends based purely on appearance. The meaning? When you remove the superficial, everyone's equal. Beautiful, plain, rich, poor. You can't tell in the darkness. But there's a second, darker meaning. This proverb was also used to warn teenagers. In the dark, it's easy to mistake one thing for another. Be careful about who you let into your life. See? One phrase, 2 lessons. One for younger children, another for older ones. Proverbs operated on multiple levels of perception. Like a good joke, the more you understand, the deeper the meaning. 14th century, based on Aesop's fables. Classic. But here's what's surprising. Parents said this to children when they started making grand plans based on something that didn't exist yet. Know why it worked? Because children literally witnessed the process. Hens incubating eggs, and far from every egg produced a chick. This was a visible lesson in reality. Not abstraction, but concrete experience. Modern children don't see this. They don't understand where food comes from, how plants grow, why anything takes time. In medieval times, reality was constantly teaching. Beggars can't be choosers. 16th century. Harsh, right? Parents would say this when a child complained about food or clothing. The meaning was clear. If you're in a dependent position, Accept what's given with gratitude. But here's the interesting bit. The proverb doesn't humiliate. It doesn't say, "You're a beggar, shut up." It says, "Understand your position. Assess the situation honestly." This was a lesson in realism, not suppression. Stop. Let's step back from specific proverbs for a moment and ask, why did these short phrases work better than long lectures? The answer lies in memory psychology. The brain remembers rhythm and rhyme tens of times better than prose. Proverbs are mnemonic hooks. They latch onto consciousness and stay there. You might forget what your mom told you an hour ago, but the phrase, "the early bird catches the worm," you've remembered since childhood. Now imagine, you're a child in 17th century England. You don't have school in the modern sense, no textbooks. Your education is watching your parents, plus these formulas. And then your father says, "Many hands make light work." 14th century. Simple idea about cooperation. But context matters more. In those times, family survival depended on how well all members worked together. Harvest, house repairs, preparing food for winter. Everything required everyone's participation. When a father told this to his 5-year-old son, he wasn't just teaching him to help. He was explaining that you're part of a system. That without you, the entire family is weaker. This didn't just form work ethic, it formed responsibility and a sense of worth. 7. A stitch in time saves 9. 18th century. Though the idea is ancient. Parents taught children to mend clothes immediately when a hole appeared. Because a small hole today becomes a massive tear tomorrow that is 9 times harder to fix. But the lesson went deeper. Problems don't solve themselves, they grow. Ignoring them makes everything worse. This was a lesson in proactivity in a world where every item was precious. You know what makes this proverb genius? Specificity. Not solve problems immediately, but a stitch in time, an image, an action, a result. Everything packed into 9 words. 8. Don't cry over spilled milk. 17th century. Milk was valuable. If a child spilled it, this was a real loss. But the proverb taught, what's done is done. Tears won't bring the milk back. This was a lesson in acceptance, a lesson that you need to move forward. In a world where a mistake could cost dearly, this proverb taught emotional resilience. Don't fixate on failure, act. Now we arrive at the really interesting part. Because there were proverbs that sound to modern ears strange, even shocking. 9. Spare the rod and spoil the child. Biblical origin, actively used from the 13th century. Yes, this is about corporal punishment. And yes, it was the norm. But here's what's important to understand. In the context of that era, the rod wasn't synonymous with sadism. It was a parenting tool in a world where survival demanded discipline. But here's the interesting moment. The proverb itself is already a restraining factor. A parent quoting it is already warning the child. So there's a chance given. I don't want to use the rod, but rules are rules. We won't romanticize this. Corporal punishment is a separate conversation, but it's important to understand context without imposing modern values on the past. 10. Children should be seen and not heard. 15th century. Peak popularity in the Victorian era. This sounds terrible by modern standards, doesn't it? Shut up and stand in the corner? But let's dig deeper. In those times, social structure was rigid. Adults conducted important conversations, made decisions that determined the family's fate. Children interrupting adults weren't just impolite, they were dangerous because they could disrupt critical negotiations. The proverb taught appropriateness. Know your place. Observe, learn, but don't interfere. This was a lesson in social intelligence. But here's the paradox. Today we encourage children to speak up, and that's right. But did we lose something in the process? The ability to listen? The ability to wait your turn? 11. Curiosity killed the cat. 16th century. The full version is even darker. Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. The second part was forgotten over time. Parents said this when a child poked into places they shouldn't. But look at the original version. It doesn't prohibit curiosity. It says, yes, curiosity is dangerous, but if you find the answer, it's worth it. This isn't about suppressing investigative instinct. It's about caution in exploration, a fine line. By now you've noticed a pattern. Every proverb isn't just advice. It's an entire philosophy packaged into a formula. Now let's look at those concerning friendship and relationships. 12. Birds of a feather flock together. 16th century. Parents said this to children when they started befriending questionable company. The meaning? You become like those you associate with. But it worked in reverse, too. If you want to become better, seek those who are better than you. The proverb didn't just warn about dangerous company, it suggested a development strategy. And notice, no moralizing, just observation of nature. Children saw flocks of birds every day. They understood this principle intuitively. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Ancient origin, established in English by the 11th century. But you know what's interesting? In medieval times, need often literally meant survival. Crop failure, illness, attack, real trouble. When parents told children this, they didn't mean someone didn't like your post. They meant, who hides you from soldiers? Who shares their last bread? That's true friendship. The proverb taught distinguishing acquaintances from friends, and this was a vitally important skill. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. 12th century. One of the wisest. Parents said this when they saw their advice wasn't working, or when an older child complained the younger one wouldn't listen. The lesson? You can give a person opportunity, but you can't force them to take it. This was recognition of the limits of influence, and simultaneously, liberation from guilt. If your younger brother won't learn despite your teaching, that's his choice. You did what you could. Move on. Now we approach Proverbs concerning the most delicate subject, a child's character and inner world. Actions speak louder than words. 17th century, though the idea is eternal. Children love to promise, I'll do it, I'll change, I will, and parents would respond with this proverb, your words don't define you, your actions do. Show, don't tell. This was an antidote to empty promises. But there's a deeper level. In a world without mass communication, reputation was built on deeds. Promise once and don't deliver, people stop believing you. Forever. The proverb taught that trust is fragile. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. 14th century. The original version is longer, but the essence is clear. Don't judge something by appearance, judge by result. Parents said this when children boasted about something unfinished. Built a house? Great. Will it survive the wind? That's the question. This taught focusing on quality rather than appearance. And this was critically important in a world of crafts where your work spoke for you. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Medieval origin. When too many people try to manage one task, the result is worse than if one person did it. Children were taught not only to cooperate, but to understand hierarchy. Everyone has their role. If you're not in charge, listen to who is. Don't interfere. Don't insert your opinion when not asked. Sounds harsh? But in a family needing to coordinate dozens of survival tasks, this was necessity. Strike while the iron is hot. 14th century, from blacksmithing. Literal meaning, iron can only be forged while red hot. Let it cool, that's it, chance missed. Figurative, act when opportunity exists. Don't delay. The moment passes. This taught decisiveness. In a world without second chances for many things, hesitation meant failure. 19. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. 17th century. Simple idea about risk diversification. If you carry all eggs in one basket and fall, you lose everything. But think about it. This is a strategy lesson for children. Don't depend on one thing. Distribute, insure yourself. In our time, this works in investments, careers, relationships. But 18th century children had this explained through eggs and baskets. Brilliantly simple. 20. A penny saved is a penny earned. 18th century, often attributed to Benjamin Franklin. Money was scarce. Every coin counted. This proverb didn't just teach thrift, it changed perception of saving. Not spending is the same as earning. This was a psychological trick that formed financial literacy. So we've gone through 20 proverbs, And now I'll ask a question that should flip your understanding of everything we've discussed. Were these proverbs only for children? Answer: no, not at all. See, here's the genius of this system. Adults told children proverbs not just to teach them, they spoke them aloud to remind themselves. Every time a father told his son, "Don't count your chickens before they're hatched," he was reminding himself too. Proverbs were a self-replicating system of wisdom. They were transmitted not as commands, but as shared language. A child grew up, became a parent, and spoke the same phrases to their children. And the cycle continued. But here's what truly astonishes. These formulas worked because they were embedded in reality. A burnt child dreads the fire worked because children saw fire every day. Many hands make light work worked because children labored alongside parents. Today we live in a different world. Our children don't see process. They don't know where food comes from, how clothes are mended, why anything takes time. Abstract lessons don't stick. And here's the paradox. We know more about child psychology than ever before. But are we parenting better? Medieval parents didn't read parenting books. They had no psychologists. But they had language filled with concentrated wisdom. Language that worked on autopilot. Let's be honest, some of these proverbs are outdated. Children should be seen and not heard contradicts modern understanding of personality development. Spare the rod, controversial territory entirely. But many proverbs are so accurate they still work. Actions speak louder than words. Don't cry over spilled milk. A stitch in time. These don't age. So what have we lost? We've lost simplicity of transmission. Today we write lengthy social media posts about teaching children responsibility. Our ancestors simply said, "Many hands make light work," and the child understood. We've lost rhythm. The brain loves rhyme, rhythm, repetition. Proverbs were packaged to stick to consciousness. Modern parental lectures aren't. A proverb used to be a code everyone understood. Today, we don't have that code. Each family invents their system from scratch. But here's what matters. We can bring this back. Not necessarily these specific proverbs, but the principle, yes. Create your family language. Short phrases that carry meaning, that everyone understands, that can be repeated without nagging. This could be a quote from a favorite film, a joke that became tradition, or even a new proverb you invent yourselves. The key is that it's vivid, brief, and repeatable. Because here's the parenting secret our ancestors knew. You don't need to explain everything from scratch every time. You need code. You need a shortcut to wisdom. And when your child grows up, they won't remember your long lectures. They'll remember that phrase, that one. The one you repeated. The one that became part of their inner voice. That's exactly how Proverbs worked. They became the inner voice. The voice of ancestors that lived in you and guided, even when parents weren't around. This is true wisdom transmission. Not through lectures, through code. So did your parents say these proverbs? Maybe not these specific ones, but the principle the same. Every family had their formulas, their codes. The question is, what codes will you pass forward?